Well, good evening, everybody. How are we? My name is Scott Redding. I'm a member of the AEIOU Foundation's Board of Directors. I'm also a parent of a child with autism. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to welcome Dr Temple Grandin to join us tonight. She's here in Queensland, Australia, because she's a keynote speaker at the Beefwork Conference, and she's very kindly come out of her way to connect with AEIOU and the community. Ladies and gentlemen, without doubt, Temple is one of the most influential people of our time, and to many people, including us here tonight, she's an absolute hero. Temple has had an extraordinary life. She's appeared on television shows such as 2020, 48 Hours, CNN Larry King Live, Primetime TV, 60 Minutes, The Today Show, and many shows in other countries. She's been featured in People magazine, The New York Times, Forbes, US News and Discover magazine. In 2010, Time magazine named her one of the 100 most influential people. Interviews with Dr Grandin has been broadcast on National Public Radio, and she has a 2010 TED lecture titled The World Needs All Kinds of Minds. She's also authored over 400 articles in both scientific journals and livestock periodicals on animal handling, welfare and faculty design. She's the author of Thinking in Pictures, Livestock Handling and Transport, Genetics and Behaviour of Domestic Animals and Humane Livestock Handling. Her books, Animals in Translation and Animals Make Us Human, were both on the New York Times bestseller list. Her life story has been made into a HBO movie titled Temple Grandin, starring Claire Danes, which won 7 Emmy Awards and a Golden Globe. The movie shows her life as a teenager and how she started her career. Everyone, I know you're excited to be here. Tickets to this event sold out in less than 48 hours. So it's absolutely amazing, and dozens and hundreds on the list. I know many of you travelled a great distance to get here. We're very excited to have Temple here tonight. Temple is one of the most highly regarded autism advocates, and there are a lot of synergies between her journey and our own. Australia is still catching up on some of its international counterparts when it comes to the provision of early intervention, education and vocational support, but that's something we're trying to change at the AEIOU Foundation. AEIOU has emerged as Queensland's largest provider of early intervention. In our centres, we provide unprecedented support to young children with autism with access to teachers, speech pathologists, occupational therapists, behaviour therapists and skilled learning facilitators. The program is the most affordable of its kind. As many of you know, it's available here in Toowoomba and cities across our great state. AEIU was developed because there was nothing else of its kind available for families who had children with new diagnosis. Like Temple, we advocate for awareness and better understanding. We also lobby government for a greater investment in the future of young children with autism. Individuals with autism and their parents are some of the most extraordinary advocates for understanding and changes you could ever hope to meet. Like Temple and a mother before her, our founders, James and Louise Morton, knew there was a better way. With tenacity and also courage, we can all achieve the things we dream of. Tonight we have a very rare and, dare I say, thrilling opportunity to hear directly from Temple. She'll tell us about her life, her career, and her thoughts on autism and early intervention. I hope you will be just as inspired as I will be. Without further ado, I'd like to ask Temple to please come to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give her a warm Queensland welcome.
Well, it's really great to be here, and I got lots of things to talk about. And one of the first things I want to talk about is the importance of early intervention. And I understand that you're doing a lot of really good work on that. You're getting these kids really young, 2.5, 3 years old. That's really super important. By the time I was 2.5 years old, I was in a really good speech therapy program using a lot of ABA type things. Now in 1949, they didn't know what ABA was, but Miss Reynolds, my speech teacher, used it. Okay, a good teacher has to be gently insistent. You gotta push a little bit. You don't push a little bit, stretch them, they don't develop. And these kids need about 20 hours a week of one-to-ones. You gotta kind of pull them out of it. Now the thing is, if you get in there and you push a kid too hard, they're gonna go into sensory overload. So how do you know how hard to push on a kid? Well, what happens when you take them in the great big huge supermarket? Every time you go in that big supermarket, it's a screaming fit. You're going to have real severe sensory problems. You got to be more gently. Work with them more gently. Some of these kids cannot see and hear at the same time. They got to do one or the other. No sudden surprises. That causes tantrums. Now, when I was 15 years old, I had a chance to go out to my aunt's ranch, and I was afraid to go. Not going, that wasn't going to be an option. I had the choice of 2 weeks or all summer. And once I got out there, I loved it. Now, if I hadn't gone to my aunt's ranch, I wouldn't be in the cattle industry. And I'm here today because the Australian Lot Feeders Association just had their meeting, and I was just over at the Currawee Feed Yard, and we had a great time over there. We had a cattle handling demonstration. It went really, really super well. I was really psyched up about that. And this brings another important thing up. I've had some people say to me, why don't you just give up livestock? Why don't you just give up the cattle? Well, I think it's important that I still have a real job. I'm seeing too many kids today where their label is becoming their whole life. They come up to me and all they want to do is tell me about their autism. I'd rather have them tell me about, if they raised a steer and they showed it in the show. Would much rather have them tell me about that. Okay, now sensory problems can occur in conjunction with lots of different labels. The other thing I want to emphasize is diagnosis is not precise. Right now there's all the controversy about Asperger's being taken out of the DSM and social communication disorders, not autism. Doctors don't sit around a conference room table and change the diagnosis for tuberculosis. You either got tuberculosis or you don't have it. In fact, it's on the Australian customs form. I had to answer that before I was allowed into the country. The answer is no, fortunately. That's something that's very black and white. You've either got TB or you don't have TB. Diagnosis is not precise. And I find people just getting completely locked into labels. And this is one of the things I talk about in my new book, The Autistic Brain. But these sensory problems can occur with many different labels. And they're extremely variable. One child's got hearing sensitivity. Another child may have visual sensitivity, can't tolerate fluorescent lights. It's extremely variable as to which sensory system's affected. It can range from being a nuisance to being very, very debilitating. When I was a little kid, loud sounds like the school bell hurt my ears. Now, one of the ways to help kids tolerate these sounds is let the child initiate it. Maybe go in after school is out and they can push the switch and turn on the bell. Maybe first of all with earmuffs and then you gradually take them off. Let them initiate it. I was terrified of balloons popping. Well, a good way to get rid of that, because I can control, let's say I blow one up this big and I pop it, no noise at all. Then this big and I pop it. Then this big, but I pop it. I am doing the initiating. And you can then sometimes desensitize to the sound. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Now, if you're wearing earplugs or headphones, you've got to be off for half the day. Because if you're not off for half the day, the ear gets more sensitive. Just like when you get wax in your ears and the doctor cleans it out and it sounds really loud, that's the brain trying to compensate for the wax in your ears. So it's okay to wear headphones or something like that, but for the noisy places, but get them off for half the day when things are quiet. Now, when I was a little kid, they couldn't really do many tests. They could do a test for deafness, auditory threshold. That's the ability to hear very, very faint sounds. But that tells you nothing about auditory detail. That's the ability to hear the hard consonant sounds. So my speech teacher would slow down, and she'd hold up a cup, and she'd say, cup. And then she'd say, cup. And she'd slow down and enunciate, and she'd alternate back and forth between saying it the fast way that it's normally said and the slow way to help me hear it. Because the ability to hear auditory detail, or rather it is different from the ability to hear the faint sound. Sometimes hearing can fade in and out like a bad mobile phone connection. And some kids have trouble getting their speech out. That was me. Other kids are echolalic. They yak out all these movie scripts and TV scripts, but they don't know what they mean. You see, the language output's working great, but meaning's not working. And I get asked about iPads. Well, don't let kids stim off of iPads. They are not a replacement for good teaching, but they can replace an awful lot of junky cardboard things. And so if you have a kid that is echolalic, okay, let's say I have an iPad and there's a picture of a dog, that word dog has to be there right below the picture of the dog. Cannot be on another screen. They will not make the association. Another place where iPads really work well is for kids that you're trying to teach them how to type. And an iPad will often work when a laptop won't work. And the reason for that, or let's say a big computer like this, if I look down and I type here, that word appears up here. I gotta look like this. These guys cannot make the connection. Where on the iPad, the print appears right next to the keyboard. I don't have to do this. In fact, years ago, a teacher figured that out. Well, she just put the keyboard on a cardboard box like up here. Okay, that was the old style for iPad. But that solves the attention shifting problem. Another problem you have when you have developmental abnormalities is attention shifting. You got to give these kids time to shift. Okay, let's say I want to ask little Tommy to do something, and I tell him to go get, we don't need coats here, it's not very cold here. I tell him to go get his books, and then put them in his desk. Maybe all he's going to hear is desk. I want to say, Tommy, I need to ask you to do something. Okay, put your books in the desk. See, now I've got the channel open. Now this really illustrates attention shifting slowness in this video, in this picture. You know, normal people looking at the eyes, I didn't even know that people had secret eye signals until I read about them in a book when I was 50. So you always keep learning. Now, look at how many times the yellow line shifts back and forth compared to the red line, which is the autistic person. That's attention shifting slowness. You can get this with many, many, many different disorders. Developmental disorders and head injuries. Okay, now another problem you can have, I don't have this problem. This is where sensory issues are extremely variable. This is where the image pixelates and breaks up. You know, like I was looking at the hotel TV just the other night, and you know, some places where they don't have a good connection, it's all pixelated. Then I watched this crazy airport show called Fly Low. I know they filmed it in a real airport. When I first saw it, I'm going like, what's going on here? These people are like weird. But some people have a problem where the image pixelates. Now, I don't have this. This is where sensory issues are variable. Now, you see in the back of your head, you got circuits for shape, color, and motion. Those circuits have got to work together to form an image. Something is wrong with this. That's why you get this kind of problem. Now, what are signs that a kid's got something wrong with the visual system? First of all, the eye exam may be more or less normal. Kids that do a lot of this, there's something wrong back here. They'll often look out the corner of their eye. They'll do this. Often they're terrified of escalators because they can't tell how to get on and off. But the biggie is fluorescent lights. People ask me all the time, how would I design a school for kids on the, with developmental abnormalities? I'd get rid of 60-cycle fluorescent lights. Now we're going to be getting new LEDs. I think they're going to be better. But some people can see the flicker. And this isn't just autism. I had a dyslexic student that had this problem. Now, ask a child that has trouble with reading if they ever see the print jiggle on the page. I am finding that 1 out of 50 students in my livestock handling class, where I have them design facilities, has this problem. And how I can diagnose it? They cannot draw. These kids are horrible at drawing. And if they see the print jiggle on the page, they're not going to read very well. So what are things we can do? If I'm stuck in a room with no windows, I hope you don't have that here, then I take an old-fashioned incandescent light bulb, the old-fashioned energy waster kind. I hope you can still get those here in Australia. And you put that next to the desk, and it blots out the fluorescent lights. Now what? Yes, that's right. Okay. Maybe wear a hat. Phones, tablets, and laptops. Those are your good computers. These screens here, this may have a fluorescent light hiding inside here. These can be bad. The old TV type are horrendously bad. If it's really skinny like that, then that's going to be the good kind of screen. Phones are just fine. Also, try printing the homework on pale pastel paper. Try gray, light tan, light lavender, light blue, all your different pale colors. And the person that's using it has got to pick out the color that works for them. Also experiment with different backgrounds on the computer. Experiment with different fonts. These are simple things you can do. Some people are helped by the Irlen colored lenses. That can get kind of expensive. I've sent a lot of students out shopping at the local Walmart, and they'll come back with some pale pinks or some pale lavenders, pale blues, and they're going, oh, the print doesn't jiggle anymore. And the thing is, this is such a simple intervention to try. It's stupid not to do it. Wouldn't it be dumb to flunk out of school, and really mess yourself up because you didn't use colored paper? That would be dumb. Okay, when you have very, very severe sensory problems, it takes extreme effort to screen out the background noise. Oftentimes, the student will need frequent breaks. They may be mono-channel. Either got to look at something or hear something. They may even have body boundary problems. Like I'm touching this, I obviously know where my hand is and where the desk is. Got body boundary problems, you may have problems with that. If you're working with kids that do not learn to speak, okay, so we've gotten the early intervention, we've worked super hard on this kid, and he's still not talking. I understand that you have a 77% success rate on getting nonverbal little ones into the regular school. That's doing really super well. And these are two good books. You'd have to order these from the States, Amazon.com from the States. How Can I Talk If My Lips Don't Move? This is by a nonverbal young adult who types completely independently, and he describes a totally jumbled world. In my book, The Autistic Brain, I do have a synopsis of these books, a short synopsis of these books. Carly's voice, she's another person that types independently. Okay. Scientists know a lot about the brain. Sensory issues are real. Now, if you want to look up stuff on this, some of the good free databases on the internet, Google Scholar. I hope everybody in here knows how to use Google Scholar. That takes you into the scientific databases. And it's got the right price. It's free. There's often abnormalities in the circuits between different brain departments. You see, the brain has a lot of specialized departments out around the perimeter, but then the big cable bundles that connect up the departments, that's where the abnormalities are. There's a tendency to process more in the back of the brain, tendency for that. Frontal cortex, there's some things missing. Now, I like to kind of look at personality variation, sort of like, this mixing board, you control those switches. You can make more anxiety or less anxiety. More auditory problems or less auditory problems. You see, when does being geeky turn into mild ASD? There is no black and white dividing line. In fact, Einstein had no language till age 3. Where would little Albert be today? How about little Steve Jobs? A weird loner who brought snakes to schools to liven up school? Didn't have any friends until he got involved with the local computer club when he was being bullied and teased. And that's what saved him. You see, when you hear a word, you see a word, you speak a word, you think about a word, see how different parts of the brain turn on? This is an old PET scan. And then you've got to have inter-office communications to connect stuff together. Now, this is kind of a route map of the main highways in the brain that connect up different departments. And this is an old route map, so it only shows the superhighways. Doesn't show any of the side streets. So if this was a map of the United States, the east coast is the frontal cortex. In the middle there, where it says amygdala, that's Chicago, that's the emotion center. And then out west is Silicon Valley. Well, we may get a few more circuits out west to do the fun things, and we lose some social circuits. But one thing you lose is top-down control on emotion. So after I got thrown out of 9th grade for throwing a book at a girl who teased me, and then I did go to a special school for smart kids with tons of problems, and for the first 3 years, all I did is clean horse stalls. But you know what? I was learning work skills. And Mr. Petty, the headmaster, was smart enough to realize that maybe 2 years of cleaning horse stalls and taking care of horses taught me work skills. Because one of the big problems I'm seeing today, these kids aren't learning how to work. I've seen smart kids graduating from college. They've never had a job. Now let's go over my job history right now. When I was 13, my mother set up a little sewing job that I did with a seamstress that worked out of her home. Then I took care of the horse stalls. Then I went out to my aunt's ranch and I built the gate. Oh, we had lots of things in my school. I shingled the barn roof. I rebuilt our ski-tow house. I did all kinds of things. And we need to start finding paper route substitutes for these kids. They got to learn how to work.